It's just different.
Hopeless at one point and then have an opportunity to make you go harder, make you get in that booth and just really express that hopelessness. Like, man, y'all don't understand. This is like, you know what I mean? You dig from a different place. That bottom of your soul, that pit, homie, where you felt like the shit was, you know what I'm saying? You always wanted, but it looked like it was just not gonna happen.
Shit, in your mind it ain't gonna happen, shit, it probably won't. I took some risks, some people probably won't. That's how we're grateful for the fruits of all my labor. Hard to live and know you sick, I'd rather be with my creator, thinking time's up.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Foreign Sight Podcast. This is your host, Mike Obi.
It's your boy, London Ogletree, back for some more gems. What's up, my guy?
Not a thing, my brother, just another day, another busy week, and another busy week ahead. But, everything's good on my end, just continuing with this teaching stuff and all the other endeavors I'm embarking on. What about you?
I was busy this week, but I wasn't that busy. Just kind of had a lot of happy hours at the job and meeting more work people in my industry. So just meeting more employees and coworkers, and we got to see the new office downtown. So everything's been kind of good on my end, but not too bad.
Yeah, you enjoying the new job?
Yeah, like I said, this is the first company that I've been with that is giving me like the proper like training, like just like most companies that expect you to kind of know, which granted I do know about the industry and stuff, but they still they're taking it step by step. And even though it's kind of a slow process, I'm ready to go. I kind of appreciate seeing them like, okay, we want to take it slow and make sure you know everything that we do as our way. Cause you can come into a new organization by what we did. Like you might go to a different school and be like, I teach this way and this is how we did it over there. And they might be like, well, this is how our team and our curriculum do it. So it's kind of like that. Like you might know the material, but you still don't want to always sell their like your old way. They might want you to sell or do things differently their way. So I kind of appreciate them doing what they're doing with me.
That's 100%, that's good because, it means that they're really investing in your success by taking the time to, not baby step you, but just make sure that you're prepared for success and that you're geared with all the tools, because then that'll help you down the line whenever, you do hit some obstacles, which are bound to happen. You'll be prepared to handle them rather than having to handle stuff on the fly. So that's good, man. All right. So today we have an interesting topic. We dive into some society and culture. And so one thing that, we always try to do is just try to analyze all aspects of life, dating, relationships. We talk about education, we talk about professions, and, we try to always keep out of the streets and keep our ears open, as far as just being open-minded and, evolving with the times. And so one thing I've been asking myself, or one thing I'm starting to think is just the game of life as we know it has changed immensely. But the question is this a good thing? So just on hearing that quote and that question, what you thinking?
I think it's changed in a bad way. Me personally, just about the game of life. I think we're more materialistic. Not saying that back then people were materialistic in their way, but now it's like people are more materialistic to the point where, like I said, this whole season of what we've been speaking about on the podcast is so social media driven. So it's like, say, for example, me, I like going the proper steps, like find you somebody, get to know them, like really get to know them, then potentially form that relationship, that friendship, then date. Then once you get that dating, you plan on building a relationship with that, and then you propose, and then you get married, then you get a house with them. And then I think that's when you should. But even this generation does that differently with dating. It's almost like they might live together and then they might get married. I kind of like that route better though. Live with the person first, then get married, instead of the get married then live with them, because it's like you kind of know how that person is before you get married. So kind of to answer that question, the game of life, I think now is just basically instead of doing the right steps that we're used to doing, I think more people was like, get a Mercedes, get this nice car, get this, but they might not have their finances. Like just because you can buy that purchase, don't mean that you should buy that purchase, because you might not be able to afford it. Because once you buy that purchase, you might not have nothing in your account no more. So for me, I think it's just more of like, it's about showing off what you have in that moment to get praise instead of actually doing the proper steps. That's why I think it's changed now.
See, that's a good analysis. First off, and I respect. I mean, that's real good. You know, just kind of being able to take it down layer by layer. For me, I'd say that it's to be determined whether it's good or bad. I mean, right now we look at it in this time and at this moment, and we're thinking only, you know, you can take a glass half full or half empty approach, but you can take
Right.
you can take a cynical approach, you can take an open approach. I think for me, there are good and bad that have come with just how things have changed. I would say that one way it's changed for the good is that, you know, at least people are more aware and more focused on, you know, the fact where they are in life and, you know, trying to progress forward for some of them. And, you know, trying to push themselves to do more or to tackle more. You know, I think that could be a good thing, right? As long as people do it for the right reasons and intent. I think
Right.
that's what you were talking about, where some people, they get so caught up in trying to fit in with the Joneses that they lose sight of why they even do what they do in the first place, right? They lose appreciation for the journey, like I talked about last week. Like, yes, having all of these things are good and they're great, but you should never have to lose yourself in order to get those things. Or if you know that that's going to put you under some strife or your family under some strife, then is it really worth having those things? Or what's your motivation for having what you have or wanting what you want? That's the main thing I ask anybody, from my kids to even my peers. And it's so strange being kind of in the middle of those things, where it's like some of the stuff that we talk about with my students. I'm like, you know, I don't think y'all realize we talk about this as grown adults too. So all the things that you guys are factoring in or thinking about, we think about this, and it's not gonna go away. You know what I'm saying? And then I mean, I think just as far as that's concerned, like some of the bad things, just again, delayed gratification, maybe whether it's lost art or whether people just don't see it as a good thing anymore. I mean, I think that still has value. And you know, everybody wants you to have had all the answers figured out yesterday. But the fact of the matter is, the only way you figure stuff out is by going through things. And going through things takes time, takes energy, it takes process, it takes many, many years. Most people really don't make it till they hit a certain level in life. And, you know, at that time, they've gone through the experiences where they're able to appreciate it. I think what happens is people have been able to acquire success without having to work overly hard for it. And so then therefore they may not appreciate the little things in life. That's my opinion.
My thing, let me ask you a question. How do you think, because you made a good point, you said, don't lose yourself while you're trying to achieve the goals of why you started. How do you think us as a generation gets back to that? Because I think that's what I see the most of, is like people lose themselves, and it's like they forgot why they started, and then they fall into that, like, I got the praise and forget the mission. So how do you feel like people can get back on track and get full going again?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, because to me, we may not be able to go back to that, honestly. And so therefore, it's like if I had the answer, if I had the blueprint, I'd be able to say, yo, this is the way we do it. But the fact of the matter is that I think that's a person by person thing. I would say that most people who lose themselves is because they let the whatever it is, the success, the clout, the money, the status, the lifestyle get to their head. And as a result, they tend to sever ties. And usually it takes something where, you know, it's too late, or they've already done what they've made their bed. Now they got to lie in it. Right. As far as us getting back to that, I think most of the time that goes to dating relationships, or just your relationships with the people who you value. I think people just have to make sure that they keep perspective on, look, before I was this, there was this humbling experience, and, you know, just always appreciate that there's somebody just like you who's looking to get to where you are. So I think if people start to reinvest back into maybe their communities or the people that they love, or just give back, that's one thing I'm big on. That's why I've always kept perspective, and I feel like I've never lost, because I'm always trying to like say, okay, I'm getting here. So because now that I'm here, now I can give it back down to generation, or at least give them the game, right? I think most people, what happens is they try to make it so that way they can pull the ladder up with them. You know what I'm saying? They climb the ladder so that way they can pull it up, and therefore they leave everybody who doesn't make it, you know, behind. And I think that's where people start to lose themselves, is that they think, oh, well, I got here, look, I'm here, and I feel like I did it all by myself. So you who hasn't made it yet, that's your fault. You know what I'm saying? And you just need to work harder. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's the hard part, is pulling that ladder up. It's like, are you comfortable enough with yourself to let somebody else, you give them free game, and then potentially passing you to kind of get to that next level? Me, I never, like, if there's somebody making 400,000, I'm making 150,000 a year. I'm not mad at you making 400,000. I make 150,000 or something like that. I make a like 200,000, whatever I make. Like whatever I make and that person's over me, I've never had an ego problem to be like, man, we all eating, because like at the same time, you can do almost just as much as that person's doing at that point. It's just how you look at it and how you analyze it. So I think people are so in their heads of like, I won't be the top dog. I won't get that top attention, where I feel like people can feel that energy if you just genuine. So that just goes from that.
Yeah, and I think, they like you hear so much talk about this, oh, I need a six-figure earner from, people nowadays. And I think why it's all about threshold, right? I feel like once you hit that threshold, the lifestyle between the person who makes six figures to, seven figures is not overly different. I mean, you can afford more luxury things.
Yeah.
As far as getting your basics met and your essentials paid for, you got all that in the bag, especially if you're smart with your money. Then it's the more figures you get, that's more luxury things, more extravagant vacations, and more frequency that you can take on them. But you're allowed to at least hit the same markers, and you have largely access to the same lifestyle to a degree. I mean, obviously, the more money you make, the more you have, but I think that's where what you're talking about, like you who makes 150 versus 400K, it's like that person has more, but it's really access to the same lifestyle, right? You probably are able to go to the same restaurants that they go to. You may not go as frequently, but you can go if you want to, so I think that's where that whole thing comes into place. And, I think like previous generations had this, right, in terms of wanting, you always hear about parents wanting better for their kids. It's the same thing of you giving game to somebody who's coming up under you. It's like, in a way, it's supposed to be that way, because when you give them the game, they're not supposed to make the same mistakes. So they're able to get there faster. I tell that to my athletes. I'm like, look, I went through this experience. So when I'm on y'all, it's not about me getting on y'all because I want to make y'all run or I'm trying to punish you. It's because I'm trying to circumvent this process for y'all where y'all don't have to make the mistakes that I or any of these other coaches made. So we're trying to get y'all to learn this stuff now at 13 instead of you having to figure it out at 18. So that's 5 extra years of extra growth that you should be able to embark on, where by the time you get to where I was, you're way ahead of the curve and way ahead of all the other people in the class. That's how I feel like it should have been. But unfortunately, we have this twisted notion that, well, no, they got to figure it out for themselves because I had to, right? And I think that's where people tend to go, or it's like, because I made it, you didn't work hard enough, and that's why you didn't make it.
I did have some coaches, and I had people who would tell me like the same thing you just said in the beginning of like, I've been through this, so I'm trying to give you all the routes to not go that same route. Mm-hmm. But I think that last part only, I could be wrong. I think it goes for just how African Americans and how we was brought up is like, that's kind of how it was for us, of just like, they might have made it, and it was like at that point, like, let's give them, it's basically just tough love, trying to make them pull out that same aggression, where it's like, you don't gotta do that much tough love anymore because you have all the resources to tell that person what they should do to get to that next point. I think that's something that I will improve in as this generation kind of started with us, of passing it down to the next people. Like I said, mutual funds, stocks, just knowledge of anything that I've got in my brain, like I can give that to somebody else. So it's like, that's kind of how you gotta look at it. And I kind of agree with what you were saying right there in both of them parts.
Yeah, most definitely. So what we're gonna do is just put back some of the layers. I mean, we kind of started with the whole social media thing, but how do you think social media as an entity largely changed the game, in your opinion? The game of life, that is.
It was already so many ways to make money prior to social media, but social media just opened up a whole different wave of making money. Like you can make money. Like I've made money from social media. Like any way you can make money from social media is beneficial. Like to market like Facebook Marketplace, selling something, selling your own meal prep stuff, like selling your workout plan, selling anything that you can think of to become an entrepreneur. Because people think this entrepreneur is if you're just super just successful. Like the general level of definition of being an entrepreneur is just somebody who is just owns their own things and wants to, I look at it as like own their own things and just thrive to kind of be successful and like get generations of wealth. That's kind of why I look at it like. But for a sense, like social media just opened up a whole different platform for people to make money, but on the downside of it, you just get a lot of people who are just into drama,
Mm.
who are into other things besides making money. But for me, don't get me wrong, I've lived that lifestyle of Instagram where I post to kind of get attention and like get that feedback of like validation. Everybody goes through it. But once you kind of it clicks, I just never went too far with it. Like there's times you would post something and you'd be like, let me get some attention, blah, blah, blah. And then you might get your attention, but I always would go back into reality at home and be cool. So social media, I think, helped us, but hurt us at the same time. So I don't know if you can look at social media as a negative if it's helped us this much.
Well, I'd say that, there's good and bad in anything in life, and social media just highlights that and depicts it, I mean, in real time for you, right? The good stuff of social media is like access, including access to information, right? If you find something out, imagine if we had COVID, if there was no social media to be able to spread out what was going on, right? Think of how much easier it'd have been able to spread amongst the countrymen, amongst the people, right? So you look at access to news, you look at how quickly you can deliver something from one person to another. Used to be you'd have to learn about it through the newspaper. Now somebody can tweet about it and then a million people can get access to it. Those people can retweet that or, share whatever the case may be. So access, and in terms of expedition of information or just content in general, I think is a good thing, and that's the upside. But then the downside is, like I said, misinformation and being able to use social media to defame someone. I think one thing, going to what you're talking about is that people are very consumed with their own personal brand, just like everybody has a brand now. And it's like, that's all good and well, and you should, in a way, you are protecting it. Even if you don't create a business, you're still protecting your image. And
Right.
I think image is something that people have really taken seriously. If anything, that's their most prized possession than any asset that they own or any job. And so whether that's a good or a bad thing is to be determined, in my opinion. I mean, I think people have gotten more business savvy just in general of like, okay, growing on social media, growing the network. It's almost like Instagram, Facebook, all those things are like the new LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is the professional aspect of it, but people want to grow on Instagram to build a following, because in building a following, people look at it as social proof. So that to me is what social media has been wrapped up.
I really feel they're all similar. Like
Yeah.
even like for example, now I don't think Twitter's so much. But that's why I think Snapchat is dying, because Snapchat just isn't. It's not beneficial no more. I think everybody's starting to use social media to try to get some type of money in some way. And there is a way you can make money on Snapchat, but it's hard for people. You got to actually be put on to kind of like get the money from Snapchat. But people don't really know that outlet of it. But like the main sources of, I think I will say, is Instagram, TikTok for money wise, but even LinkedIn. LinkedIn is starting to get more, not as professional as it used to be, and it's starting to be now more transparent about how people feel and how people voice their opinions and kind of have their vocal opinions. So I think that's the benefit of LinkedIn now. So yeah, I think social media, in my opinion, has been beneficial, but like you said, it comes with bad anything you do. So
No, good. So the next part is work-life balance. So now we get away from social media and just, people's every day to day, so to speak. How do you think work-life balance has evolved?
like I said, when COVID happened, that was like one of the most, at that time, one of the most, in the time period of history, that was probably eventful, probably for the US probably ever seen. Nobody's ever seen the US just shut down like that, probably. And I don't know. So with that being said, when everything recovered, it kind of showed companies and other people that you can work from home, and you do have the ability to work and do things from your computer. And you don't have to always be in the office 8 hours a day. So now us having the leverage of maybe working 2 days, some people even work remote full time. It's like you have the ability to balance your life and work at the same time. So if you have kids, for example, you might be able to go pick them up. You might be able to, if you work remote, you can take them to school. You can pick them up at 2:30, and you also can make sure you're cooking dinner while you're working. You make sure you do your meetings. You might have to fold clothes. You might have to clean the house. You might be able to do all those things from doing things from working remotely. So that's why I think the working life has evolved since COVID came because now you can do multiple things.
From my aspect, I want to ask you about this. What about the tendency of people after COVID, especially post-COVID? This was kind of, I think, on the trajectory, and then I think COVID really kind of highlighted it. People utilizing their leverage as far as like, I have power as an employee, like people gaining that mentality where it's like, look, if I want to go on a vacation, used to be maybe I think twice, but now I'm gonna go, you know what I'm saying? Or just like utilizing their time off 6 days, and also like people not putting it up with like disrespectful higher ups management. Like I'm out here the first thing smoking because I seen that, you could be gone tomorrow and there's nothing you can do. So, like I remember after COVID, people were like, everybody thought, oh, everybody's going to just go back to work. And that really wasn't the case. A lot of people stayed home and like they decided to continue traveling when traveling became a thing. I remember, people were really shocked. Many companies, many higher ups, many executives were shocked that like people was kind of, maybe, I don't think it was laziness, but just people weren't in a rush. A lot of them to go back to the office, go back to work, or people, wanted to just kind of sustain that time off. So what do you think about that aspect of it?
No, yeah, I think what that did was build like a lot of hustler mentalities into COVID. Because like for you, I got laid off and COVID started when COVID first hit. So you have to kind of resort into how you gonna pay your bills still, because you're not working and stuff happens and it's a eventful time, you still got to pay your bills. So I have to figure out a way to still provide and still pay. And just my mentality of if there's something hits the wall, I know how to go through adversity and kind of get through that and come through the top. So for me, I started my meal prep. I started training people. I started doing a lot of different things. I went back to work in the courtyard. And then you kind of see you might work a little longer. But to answer your point, a lot of people aren't taking that much stuff from their higher ups and their directors and their whoever's like their line manager, because they're like, well, I was doing all this making most people are going to say I'm making the same amount that I'm making going into the office doing this. You guys are only paying me $20 an hour. I was basically getting that, and I still had all my time at home to do what I want, travel, do this, and this. Why would I not do that route and not take the disrespect, then just go to office, don't want to do that and still get yelled at by you? So it made people kind of get faith and saying that I can do this something that I wanted to do my whole life. I was like, it was mandatory to stay at home and do something and figure out how to get money. And that's kind of how I did it in COVID. So that's what a lot of people are probably thinking, like, I don't need to go back to work. And that's kind of what shook a lot of these executives and directors and all these different managers, like, well, why aren't people coming back to work? So
yeah, that and people leveraging, like, I don't care about putting in my 2 weeks. Like you see it on TikTok a lot about like, I felt disrespected, I'm out of here. I'm not giving you, if you don't want to give me the courtesy to be respectful, then I don't give you the courtesy of, putting in the 2 weeks and letting you figure it out. Like people quitting on the spot, especially mostly you saw this in retail jobs and things of that nature where it's a lot of customer service based. Yep. So then what happened, but I know for me being in education and teaching, you saw this in education a lot. Like now that's like the number one thing advertised is getting teachers into the field, right? And this whole thing of also, workers' compensation, like gone, I think of the days of you being able to lowball someone, as far as salary is concerned, as far as benefits are concerned, because if you're not giving them the ultimate work-life balance where you're like, hey, you don't have to come in that much, you can have your weekends and things of that nature, and you're trying to lowball them as far as salary, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Someone's got to give. And so I think that happened, for a lot of teachers. They got burned out. They didn't feel like they were getting paid enough. And on top of that, all the stuff that they're going through as far as parents, as far as higher ups, as far as school boards, as far as all those things, it's like a lot of people left the profession in the past couple years, especially since COVID, because of all the expectations. And so I think now it made companies, HR departments really have to think, okay, how can we best accommodate people that way we don't have to have all this turnover? Because at the end of the day, people can say, well, yeah, we don't need you, we need you. But then there is that aspect of it gets to be a big inconvenience if you have this revolving door of people coming in and out that you're having to retrain, reteach, repay, rehire on, you know what I'm saying? And then they drop they go at the drop of a dime. So, I mean, I think that's even a bigger component of it all, is just people utilizing and understanding their worth and, leveraging it.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with with all that, it's just it's I think it all stems down to just people are tired of kind of living that basic boring life of just going to the office, coming home, going to the gym. I think now we live in a world where it's like I said, it's very materialistic. I want to go do things. I want, and don't get me wrong, you should be able to go do things if you work all 365 days a year. You should be able to have the option to go travel, go be with your friends, and do all this, and still have a work life. So I think everybody in the world is just confident, and that's why a lot of people are more lenient in getting things. It's just a unique time of this generation to be living. So
I have a question. Do you
Okay.
think that what I just described as far as people, utilizing the leverage, do you think that goes to just bad work ethic or laziness? Because I've heard that side of the spectrum. So I want to know what you think about that.
It could result into being lazy. That we got stimulus checks. We got a lot of different things that came to us at a fast period of time, and it was like they're giving us thousands of thousands, and if we got kids, they're giving us extra this, or we got this, they're giving us free money. People doing was it PPA loans? I don't know what that was, and it's starting to backfire. But it's like at the same time, it was quick and easy money, and people don't like the hard road to everything. So it kind of made people lazy. But yes, it did make people lazy, and it's like you just kind of want to still get that free money. But those days are coming to an end of just how much money we was getting in COVID. I think a lot of people in 2020 was transitioning from college to their adult world, and there's a lot of people who were just like, "Oh, this is how it's going to be for a long time." They kind of got comfortable, and I think it did make a few people lazy.
I wonder, I always was curious about how that class where when they got out of college, 'cause I just missed it. I just missed it. That class that got out of college and they're expecting to get this new job in the workforce, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, sorry, the world is shut down as you know it.
That
And
was me.
yeah, so I mean, for you, since you lived it in real time, I mean, how did that alter your worldview? I mean, I know you talked about hustling, but how do you think as a collective, since you were part of that era, like, how do you think that, shook the world up, or how did it shake y'all's class in particular, that generation, that period of time? How do you think that shook people, if it did?
For me, I got the job before I graduated, so I was still locked in. But I
Mhm.
know a lot of people who got their jobs locked in the right, like in college or last year, that companies called back and said we're going to have to delay your hiring date because of COVID. We're having to save money, cut back on costs, or at the same time, you might just have a lot of people who just wasn't getting hired that had engineering degrees, had this, and they were just stuck. Like, what route do I go? I got to get some type of money. Thank God. Some people might have their family to still say, "Come stay with me." Do this and save money. Some of my friends went the insurance route, but that wasn't really doing well. So it was still commission based. So they were just trying anything. And then once the world started calming down, open up, okay, more companies are hiring again. And now everything is starting to look normal and everything is starting to do a flip. So it was a scary time because you didn't know as a young adult that what was was this going to be, how is this how adulthood is? That was the first stage that you kind of got as being an adult. It's like, dang, like this, I come out of college and I can't get a job, and is college even worth it? Is this degree worth it? Was this a scam? But it's like, no, we were just in a time that nobody knew where we was at. So
Yeah.
so
So this badge conversation actually leads us to the perfect segue, and we talk about education. So how has education changed in your eyes? How has the game of life changed in regards to education?
like I said, I think in this generation we kind of try to take the shortcut way, and it's not really a shortcut way, but it's in a way of saying what route will make me more money. So it's like, if you are in the social media world, can this make me enough money to outdo this degree? Or am I doing all this stuff for a degree just to only make $50,000, $60,000, live paycheck to paycheck? Or can I just go so hard at them 4 years on social media, like college, and hopefully I blow up in them 4 years on social media? And if those 4 years don't work, then go back to college.
Mhm.
So I think people are thinking that route. and saying like, and then I love talking to people at Alpha Land sometimes. You might come into some kids who are still in college who still wants that degree, but really still want the IG and that still that Instagram like that status and stuff like that influencer. That's the word I was looking for. They want to still be an influencer. So I was like, if you can have both of those mindsets, that's great. But I know it's hard if you got 50, 60, 70,000 followers and you about to see your stuff really take off and this is hard to kind of stay focused in school because it's like, do I really need this? If this blows up, if TikTok blows up, if YouTube blows up, I technically don't need that. So education has changed because it's like it's kind of like work. Do you still need to, if you're making, I'm gonna give you an example, Obi. If you're doing your fragrances, you're doing the podcast, and say we're getting monetized, you're getting monetized for both of those, and we get monetized for the podcast. Say you're making $400,000 to $500,000 a year. I mean, me, I don't think you would be coaching or you'd be doing it. That's just would be like me. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I was to get monetized. So it's like the people who has that drive to still go to school and still kind of do the influencers that has a high following. I give them salute because I'm like, to me, I'd have been already transitioned out. So my question to you is, how do you think, you being into education, do you think it's changing? Do you think it's staying, or do you think we're kind of just at a plateau with it?
Good question. I think what happened, to kind of to your point, it depends on the age. I would say that like the young adults, so everyone, even I'll go from 17 to 21, right? They're kind of that product of that 2020 class that I'm talking about. It's like, I want to go to college, but then they have this social media possible clout, like tapping them on the shoulder. It's almost like my dad and a lot of older people say like, it's just like being a rapper, just like being an NBA player. Like that's what a social media person is. Like he said that to me when I was talking about my fragrance stuff. He's like, that's like the new rappers, stuff. And I'm like, you're kind of slighting it, but at the same time, I can see where you're coming from. It's like people, because again, the money's too much. The money's too much from the standpoint, it's too alluring for them to look past it. It's like, why go to school, pay debt to get this degree that maybe will get you a job whenever you see this possible money from social media just like there, almost like calling your name, just like, hey, you have this opportunity, are you going to really deny it? Are you really going to like seize it? You have all this opportunity to get it tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Especially because now with post-COVID world, it's almost like, hey, we're not going to be here forever. So people feel like they don't have the time to invest in a long-term plan, right? In theory, or how it should be largely, is that someone gets a degree, they get a job, they work that, they climb up, they hit their potential around 30, and then they're able to have that long-term money. The problem is that seems like that's unfeasible now. You know what I'm saying? I look at it as back in maybe our parents' era, school led to job, which led to comfortable and peaceful lifestyle. Now people look at it as school, which equals debt, leads to possible job, which leads to mediocre subpar lifestyle. And I think that's what people are looking at, or people perceive it as. Even when I talk to like little bros, like I'm talking like young adults, so like our age, but just under, it's like, yeah, nobody wants to be with somebody who only makes 40 to 60K, 70K even. Everyone wants to be with the 80 plus, K earner one. But then these jobs, they keep like, you apply to them after you get your degree and they keep telling, oh no, we're not hiring. Oh, we need this experience, that experience, that experience. Well, how am I going to get the experience if you don't hire me, if none of y'all companies hire me? So then people look at, okay, well, I'm not making money, but I still need to pay my bills because I want to move out, or I need to pay for this car, pay for this bill. So what's the alternative route? Okay, let's try to do the social media thing. Yeah. So I think naturally people they're given the choice, but they choose that option because that to them is more feasible to be able to do than to go to college and kind of have the patience to wait it out. A lot of it too, not everyone has family to go back and live with. If you look at, like in my culture, most parents will let a person, let their child stay at home until they get it figured out. Some cultures, they're not about that. As soon as you turn 18, hey, you got to figure it out. So, naturally, you have to do what you have to do to survive, and that's usually what it ends up leading to. So, long story short, education, I think has shifted, especially amongst young adults, where the social media aspect, the social media money is more attractive and it seems more attainable than the job and career money. One. Now, as far as young people, like young kids who are still teenagers, like the kids I'm largely around and exposed to, like that 14 and below, they still are big on college and seeing the value in that. You know, social media hasn't taken over too many of them, but it's starting to get there. It's starting to shift because even some of them tell me about who I have this YouTube channel. I've already started this and they're only 13, 14 years old. So it's there. It's there and it's a real thing. It's live. And, you know, it's just having to let them manage it. And, you know, it's a tough situation because like you don't want to get in nobody's business or tell them, oh, that's not going to work ever. But
Right.
you do also want to like be able to instill in them like the habits that you learn from school. And that's the biggest thing I'm on. If you don't learn anything else from any of this curriculum, learn how to at least pattern and adopt good habits like self-discipline, like being able to follow a regimen, like being able to follow a schedule, like being able to do your homework. Your homework's not a matter of assigning you stuff, because I don't do that, but it's a matter of if you're going to take an interest in something, at least be able to look it up, do some background research. That way you're better prepared to be able to speak about it. That's the way I look at education and how I kind of teach it to them, to answer your question.
No, yeah, that's a good way to kind of teach it to somebody. Because like, if you think about it, I think social media took off when I was they like Facebook and stuff and MySpace, but like it really took off with Twitter and all this. I'd say I was in 10th, 11th grade of high school. So I was almost out of high school at a point when social media just started taking off. So for you to say 13, that's at least 3 to 4 years of them having a advantage of where their mindsets can go from social media versus where I was in social media coming off and kind of corrupting my mind. So social media can be dangerous. It can lead you to a unrealistic path, unrealistic lifestyle that somebody might not have. It's a vision that somebody just does. Some people do just to kind of look good. So I just hope it doesn't hurt these children's and these young kids, young men and young women's mind, because at that point, being all serious, all jokes aside, like it really can mess somebody's head up by just listening to somebody who's 25, 26. And that 13-year-old might think he's genuine, but he could be fake as marble. So it could just mess up a lot of things. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Facts. Yeah, man. It's just something that with the times it's there and it's not going anywhere. And, you know, I think the sooner we as a culture and as a society start to acknowledge it and start to learn how to adapt to it, the more we can kind of mitigate a lot of the potential issues, in my opinion. But
I agree.
I want to talk about, since we're on this whole trend, this impact of us being in a capitalistic society where everybody's kind of trying to seek being wealthy and being rich. Do you think we have a wealth-seeking problem?
I'm never going to say that. Maybe we might have unrealistic goals to try to get there. And you saying you want to be wealthy and your actions might not line up. And that's the only reason why people might not get to that wealth. So it might seem cool to be like, I want to be rich. I want to see you wealthy. I want to have generations of wealth. But if your worth ethic is not even remotely close to even saying what you just said, you're just talking. So at that point, I think it just goes to who that person is instead of just, do we have a wealth problem? Yeah, maybe we do, because there's a lot of followers, but that just comes to like, we've been having followers in this world.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like how you reframe it too. It's not that maybe seeking wealth is a problem, but expectations are the problem. Now, I want you to expand on that. Why do you think people have unrealistic expectations? Because I agree with you, especially when you talk about people's work ethic or their spending habits. Like, okay, you want to be wealthy, but you spend and you live very wastefully. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you look at most of the top entrepreneurs, they lived real humbly until they blew up. People trying to look rich and act rich, but then they don't have anything in the bank account. That's at least from what I observed. But, you know, I want you to expand on why do you think people have unrealistic expectations?
If you look at the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, you don't really see a lot of those rich people wearing, as we call it, drip. You don't really see them wearing that type of stuff. you might see who's the guy who not Steve Jobs, but who does Microsoft. I don't know his name.
What's his name? Oh,
It
Steve
goes
Ballmer.
no, Bill Gates. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my
Bill
bad.
Gates. That's what I'm talking
Microsoft,
about.
not
Yeah.
Apple, my bad.
Not
Yeah,
Apple. I'm sorry. Bill Gates. Bill Gates basically I heard he rides the Prius.
Mhm.
We know that he can buy a house in each state and he can have a lot more. He can buy a house in each state worth $10 million and just still that wouldn't even be a dent. But for him to not want to buy the jewelry, the cars, the houses, this and this, and he has that, and I tell people, I'm like, I just like to save money. And people are like, well, you're cheap. I'm like, well, that's how you stay rich. It's not about, it's so easy to get the money. I mean, it's so hard to get the money, but it's so easy to spend it. But if you just keep people, how do you have this? How do you have this? Well, I just take out what I get on a paycheck, and I might say, well, just because I have it, don't mean I have to spend it. And then that's how I go into my saving. I keep saving, and it keeps adding up. So for me, to kind of answer your question is, what was your question? So I can kind of wrap that up a little bit.
Why do you think people have unrealistic expectations?
They look at finish this up. They look at the social media. So like basically I was finishing up. Look at the social media. They see the little babies. They see the little Dirks. They see this. They see the LeBrons. They see LeBron had a blue paddock. They see Mikey Williams, for example. He's still in high school. He's living the way he lives. So let me say I want to get rich so I can live like Mikey, or let me say so I can like LeBron, so I'm gonna keep saying that. And on the back end, you got to ask yourself, what is that person doing to kind of get there? It's like me saying I want to lose 20 pounds, but I still go eat cheeseburgers every night. That's not about to sit here and help me. So it's like, for me, I can be unrealistic with the world and say something to somebody, or I can just keep doing what I do, and then the results are going to come from that point. So I don't think we have that problem with seeking wealth, but I think we have a problem with people actually doing the work ethic in the process. Like when you do with your fragrances, like you say you're going to do this and you're going to be successful at it. But what people don't see is you're walking around the gym, even though you don't want to walk around the gym and talk because you're tired of this and this, you still do it because that's your passion. And that's what people don't understand is you got to do it when you don't even want to do something. And that's how you get successful. There's a lot of people who sit down and get lazy. And I think that's how it kind of sums up this whole conversation is just people are so quick to get the handout. People are so quick to take the easy route and kind of network. Basically, I call it mooching off people to kind of get theirs instead of doing it the traditional route of doing it your own way and kind of learning trial and errors. A lot of people can't hear no's. So I think a lot of people, we got to get tough. A lot of people, we're starting to get weaker. And with us getting weaker, we want to fail. We want to give up. We want to take the easy route out instead of just hammering and keep going. Okay, this didn't work. This didn't work. Let's keep trying. So that's kind of how I pinpoint this whole conversation is just like, this is how people need to start doing it. And I'm not the person to say I have all the answers because I don't, but just kind of what I've seen that worked with a lot of people is just hard work is always going to overdo somebody who doesn't have the work ethic and just kind of wants to do something super fast.
I'll play devil's advocate for a moment because this applies in my situation. We talk about this whole thing of wealth seeking and getting the money and looking for the money and people being consumed with that. Especially talking about my fragrances. I'm not a person who likes to do that type of stuff on camera a lot. You know, I really like to actually be in the present moment and actually like be able to teach someone about something. However, people look and they say, why don't you blog this? Why don't you why don't you do this more? You know what I'm saying? And my whole thing is because then it takes the fun out of it. Now you're putting on an act and you're really not being genuine, in my opinion. That's how I see it. But then I'm also a person who is like, yeah, and then everyone's trying to be rich and keep up with the Joneses, things like that. So my thing is, do you think my mindset honestly is messed up from the aspect you can't say that on one end, you don't like being on camera because then you can't monetize your blog or whatever the case may be. You don't have that going. But then you also criticize, or you may criticize culturally, you know, the tendency of people wanting to seek wealth. You get where I'm getting at? You get where I'm drifting?
Yeah, I will say you're blocking it to potentially grow more than what it could. But at the same time, I get where you're coming from because there's from the point as soon as the camera comes on, you're having to do something you don't see too many people posting stuff on Instagram
Yeah.
that was like an error. Like, oh, I failed on this 315 or I failed on these burnouts. So I only got to post my highlights and my great times instead of I've never posted my bad times. So it's like for you, it's like by me blogging this, me doing this, if say you're talking to a person and their energy is in there,
Mhm.
are you gonna say cut and say, can we go
Right.
roll back and say, can we do this again until you do this right to me? Then that's already fake.
Yeah.
Then we didn't just mess this whole thing up because it's not genuine no more. It's like, that didn't work. Let's do this better. Let's do this. Let's say this differently. And then it takes out the fun of like, I'm not really even feeling this. Like that's why it sometimes sucks for me when I record my workouts.
Mhm.
I love the gym, but it's like when you record, you're so focused on having the perfect video, then it's like you lost your pump. And then when that's done, you got the video, you're like, dang, I can't even finish my workout because I'm not even finishing no more. But I wanted to make sure it was so perfect for these people out here. And then this thing might not even blow up. So I just wasted my workout to try to please somebody else on the gram that didn't even hurt. So I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, it can give you the potential to blow up more because if one hits, then you can be genuine when you blow up. That's when I say you can be the most genuine you could ever be, is when you actually make it. So the people who actually make it and who act weird, I'm like, y'all are weirdos. Because I'm like, you already you already made it. You can like I would be like, dang, you at least you faked it and then you went back to you. But people just keep faking it. I'm like, I'm not gonna fake it, trying to get there, and I'm dang sure ain't about to fake when I make it. So that's kind of how I look at it. If you do blow up, then you can just be genuine, but going through that process of getting there, and you're gonna have to be more fake. So I get you.
My issue has been that if I start bringing the camera, like, okay, I go up to someone in the gym or in public or wherever, 'cause I do this, I do it everywhere now. It's gotten to that point where I bring samples with me. Hey, can I get you to review it? Can I get you to try this out? Yeah, whatever the case may be. My thing is, if they're not feeling it, then I just say, hey, have a good day, keep it moving. If you're on camera and stuff, automatically, I think people are gonna like have their mindset, oh, this mother wants something. You know what I'm saying? Like people are so geared to, oh, what is it? What do you want? You want something from me. Usually when it's a woman, it's like, oh, he wants, X, Y, Z. And it's like, it's not that. I just want an opinion. Right. So I think what happens is that those people who take off, a lot of them who you say act weird, they automatically think people want something from them, whether it's a shout out, whether it's a collab. And usually it's people who don't have nearly the following that they do. So they're like, why do I have to put this person on when they haven't built the following, built the sweat equity that I did? So that's, I think, where I approach it. But at the same time, I've had to come around to, I could be blocking other people, I could be helping,
Right.
by blogging it and by blogging it. Because at the end of the day, especially where we are, there's not a whole lot of people doing what I do and who actually like love it for the art and for like being able to share and help people. That's what I've always been about. So that's where it's like I had to come around to like, okay, it's not always and only about you. You have to do this for the other people who you can, aid. And so that's where that whole balance and that comes into play with it. But I just wanted to, kind of talk about that and kind of expand upon that exercise.
Yeah, I get you. Like it's not easy to do be genuine and do what you love, but also have a tripod standing up at the time and saying, wait, we're pushing play, go. It's hard. If you had, it would be more genuine if you could pay a cameraman, just have it rolling the whole time.
Yeah.
Then it can get more genuine. But you having to do it right now at yourself, you got to have a tripod, stand it up, just have it recorded. Like, look, I gotta walk that person through what I'm about to say.
Yep.
It kind of loses the just originality of what you're trying to do. So
yeah, I feel you.
Next, hard 'cause
it is hard, but it's fun at the same time. And then at the end of the day, it's like it's no pressure. If you don't want to participate, then I ain't mad at you. I get it, And I think that's the thing where it's still fun to me. It's like at the end of the day, I'm talking about something I love to talk about, and I'm sharing the knowledge. As long as I'm doing that, it's all good. But we have this next part to talk about: dating. So, how has the game changed? How has the game changed as far as dating is concerned, London?
this is coming from a very healed London. Now, y'all, this is a
Y'all don't know, but our
yeah,
boy has new commitments.
Yeah, I have new commitments, y'all. I'm in a relationship now. So y'all I might as well let it out the bag. So
There it is. Yes, sir.
yeah, man.
Proud of you,
It's
by the way. Proud of you.
thank you. I'm trying it again for the second time from, as you guys can know, like I said, season 2 of our what we do with For Insight, and you guys will see us in the studio. It's gonna be a fresh, juvenated me. But
Speak
going
on.
to the
Speak.
100 episodes, basically, I got in a relationship, everything's good, but where do I see it going? Like I said, I'm coming from a hill spot, so I see it going great. But from the outside looking in, I have a more clear view
Mhm.
of it's what I've learned in this second one, and that I still didn't learn from the first one, was you got to go through some stuff to get to that next level. Me, it's hard for me to forgive.
Yeah.
So once somebody messes with me, I cut it off.
Mhm.
But what I've learned in the dating side of it is a woman's going to mess up, a man's going to mess up. As long as it's not just to the point where it's just so foul, you got to call it off. Try to be understanding, try to move on from it, because that's how you live in a lasting relationship / marriage. Number 2, keep people out your stuff. Like, just keep people out your stuff, because by you getting more insight of how you feel, it might just feel to what you feel. It might make you snap. It might make her snap. Her girls might come back and say, man, forget him. He ain't doing this. The boys might come back, man, let's go out here and go to the club and do you know what. So for you got to have your own mind and kind of have that communication with your partner. But I don't see it going too many places, just from what I see on the outside. Like, it's a lot of people I just think just out here just to have fun. And that's fine. They're young. A lot of people are young still, but for me, I just didn't think it was worth me being out there in the streets anymore. But I don't, for his people like you and some of my other homies, like, there's hope, but you got to really dig deep and kind of watch women, because I can only speak from just men perspective. But even women, you got to watch us too, because there's a bunch of just
Dogs.
dogs out here who got clout, and girls who got clout, and it's just not genuine no more to me. So you got to find that genuine and kind of find that person who makes you laugh every day, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's very well said the way you put it. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Okay, from just a outside looking in perspective, I was just said that the because of social media, dating in our society is globalized. So with that, it gives people more access to more people than ever before. You know, we had like dating apps became a thing. Obviously, you know, that was back when we had kind of first became adults. We had hookup culture become a thing. It still largely is a thing where it wasn't as taboo to just be openly sleeping around. And I mean, on one end, it's like, hey, is that a bad thing or is that a good thing? That goes to the person's ethic and moral compass, right? But I just say, you know, first off, people just got to heal first. I think you and I both have healed, and we're continuously doing it. It's evolution. It's not going to be something where you're just 100% all the way there, you know, in one day. I think people have to stop looking at it as like everything has to be 100%, because the fact of the matter is it's not. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Even for me who's single, it's like I'm single, but I'm like, I'm never gonna be like, oh, women are the enemy, so therefore I'll never date again. Like, you know, hey, if that happens, whenever it happens, cool. You know, I have a lot of OGs who are like, man, look, it's in place. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing as far as you're working a job that you love. You got your income right. You also have another passion. So you're doing things that you're supposed to be doing. And then naturally, you know, you're putting that energy out there so it'll come and find you whenever the time is right. Or if you find it, then, you know, just take it on. And then I think, like you talked about, just understanding like people gonna mess up, and not everything has to be the ultimate red flag, right? Just being a little bit more open-minded. Because I think that was one thing I was really bad on. Like if it was the slightest thing, no, she got, you know, she got to go, or no, you know, is that thing. And then it's like, okay, is that really the worst thing ever? You know, it's one thing if it's like a habit, or if like that's just a personality trait where it's like, okay, she gets emotional. It's like, fine, you know, okay, as long as you know how to work through that, that's where it's like, okay, that could be worked through, or we can manage that. But if it's like one of those things where it's damaging beyond repair and it's not going to get better, the person doesn't want to work on themselves, then that gets to that era where it's like, okay, now we got to look like that's irredeemable, so to speak. So I think it's just guys got to heal, women have to heal. Yes, we're in a global dating place, but at the end of the day, men and women, I believe, are still better together than apart. And I think people want to be together, but they don't want to give or secede anything as far as like, okay, I have to compromise this or that for my partner. It's like, no,
That's
because
exactly
then
what
I
it
have
is.
the lower hand. And as a result, if it looks like I look weak, it's like, it's not about being weak. It's about being in a happy, healthy relationship. That's,
That was it.
that's,
That
that's
was
how I see
that's all it was right there. I think
it. Yeah.
we live at a point now where women are so, and men, they still want to have that alpha male standard, but women are now like, no, this is a different time. We're equal, and that's fine. And I'm not saying we're not equal,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it's okay to, like, somebody asked me, did my girl have permission to take this picture? I'm like, she don't have to get permission from me, but she came from it from like I respect me, so I don't want to just have different pictures out there on the story. If I do want to run that across my boyfriend or this and this to make sure like it's cool. Like if, for example, if you're in a relationship, do you
Mhm.
think you should consult with your significant other about you going on a boys trip, or just say like I'm going?
I mean, I would say you run it by her, like you want to communicate that you're doing it, right? Because she's gonna want to know where you're going. If you just, oh, I'm going out, it's like, yeah, now you leave her to,
Yeah,
that's where it's like, okay, then you can't get mad if she starts like interpreting things the wrong way. Because now, like, it's not about giving her your every step of the way, but it's like,
yeah,
I just want to let you know, like, as respect, from your partner, like, I'm going here with my boys. You know what I'm saying? Now, if it gets to the point where she's like, I don't want you to go, it's a different conversation. But if you are at least upfront as far as like, hey, I'm going here with the fellas, cool.
yeah. That's how
Um,
you, that's how you got to do it. It's not like I'm out, or like I get dressed and she like, look, it's like, where you going? I'm about to go with my boys. Like, were you not going to just tell me
right,
before you just did it? So,
right.
like you said, it's a different conversation if you run it by her and she's like, I don't want you going there because I think you're gonna be doing some of this and this. Then it's like, okay, now you're not trusting me because I'm doing this or that. So I think it just, for me, and what has worked for my relationship so far is just communication and talking, because nobody's gonna be as close as you and your girl. And I think that's kind of what you gotta look at, is you gotta be intertwined with your significant other. And you can't do what other people say. And because once you start doing what other people say, you lost. And I just kind of how I think about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the T of it all. And at the end of the day, it's about respect and deference to the partner. It's not about, oh, they're the alpha or I'm the alpha or I have the higher power. It's not about this, but you try to do things to where you have a healthy relationship and, both partners understand where each other's coming from, have that empathy present. And then from there, you're not going to be worried about, oh, well, my girlfriend said this or my friend said this or they think this or they're going to think, no, hey, what I'm locked in on what we got going on here. And because of that, nobody's looking or taking in outside influences. If we have a problem that's going on, we talk about it. Not I go to someone else to get their opinion on how I should run my relationship. At the end of the day, it's yours or it's mine. Right. So you have to take it upon yourself to make sure it works. That's what I say.
100% true.
All right. So the point of all this, gone through this very elaborate and extensive breakdown of society's tendencies, man. So what is your overall take-home message of what we talked about today?
Man, that's a good question. For me, kind of what I got from it was, all this stems from having your own opinion
Yeah.
and having your own thoughts in life. And it's like you can go either way in a relationship route. You can go either way with your work and life balance of that. You can go just different ways, and just a lot of angles of it, of just how the game of life is changing, how social media is making it better, how it's making it worse. The end of all of this is basically me just saying, like, if you do everything that you want to do and you went by your gut feeling and the people that's in your circle and you love, if you listen to them and yourself and then you fail, you got to just lay on that. Like, I felt with going on my decision and with the people that I consult with and I love, go with. So if you're going off with 10C123 goes off of on IG, and you let that dictate your life, then you're going down the wrong direction. So that's
So
just my input.
So if I said it this way, game of life has changed and evolved, but at the end of the day, it stems from everyone needs to have their own individuality to make their own decisions. Then when the time comes for you to join a team being whether that's a relationship, a marriage, or even a committed organization, a committed job, you try to be the best team player that you can to make sure you're in a functional unit. Those are the two things that'll enable you success at this game, if I said it that way.
That's what I would say.
Boom. And we can put a bow on it there. So that'll do it for this. Hey, wait, what they do? Hey, boom. I'll do it for this week, y'all. Again, real good episode. One for the books. A little bit longer, but definitely a lot of good content, a lot of gems dropped, and London and I, we get tight at this stuff, man. I mean, it's a lot of growth, even from the first episode, even to now. Looking at the way we've evolved, our mindsets have evolved, and we continue to do this. But I mean, I hope whomever listens to this is just able to learn and take something from it. El, you got anything else to add or to close out with?
No, like you said, we got the chemistry that we got is starting to improve, and it's starting to keep growing over and over. It's starting to get, like I say, even more genuine each and every week. And like I said, my vision is to see us on a bigger platform and see us with some more visual things. But like I said, that comes with the growth of a start of a business. So and a brand. So it's gonna come. So that's all I have to put on it. And I just want to thank everybody who's taps in every week to kind of listen to us and gives their input on different topics to talk about.
Sure enough. Well, like we always ask y'all, continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, share it with all your loved ones, all the people who are into podcasts. Also, give us a 5-star rating on your listening platforms, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Help us get boosted in those two algorithms so we can continue to share these gems. Tap in with us on Instagram, and as well as any other listening platform, any other social media platform, and tell us what you guys want, and we'll get it done for you. But this is your host, Mike Obi.
It's your boy, London Overtree. Follow me on IG, and I guess you can say TikTok on London_Overtree. So
Yes, sir, and we'll catch y'all next week. We out.
Feet on the ground with a prove you wrong mindset. I'd rather go out on my sword than have my mind tapped. The ones with eyes can never see, I make the blind clap. I'm bringing back that type of sound that wants to find rap.